All of her scales are ripped off. Her tail fin is gone. Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and today we've got a lot going on in the fish room. We've got some unfortunate aggression issues that I want to talk about, see if maybe there's some solutions, or just show you what happened. And then we've got some cichlids that have laid eggs in one of the 40-gallon breeders, and I have those eggs in a tumbler. We also have 3 new fish that are species I've never kept before, and we're going to be adding those to the tank. So let's get started. All right, so the story starts in this tank, which looks empty and devastated by violence, because that's what it is. For the last few months, I've had a pair of Salvini cichlids in this aquarium, and I now only have one. That guy's about 5 inches. I had a male and a female, and they've got along together for several months now. They were constantly rearranging the rocks. They would move all the rocks over here, and they'd move all the rocks over here. And the longer they've been in here, the female has just been hiding behind this sponge filter, and the male has been patrolling over here. I was starting to get discouraged and thinking they weren't going to breed, but I wasn't overly concerned about it until yesterday, when I came in just checking on the fish like I always do, and the female was almost killed. Just that female has been brutalized by the male. It was overnight, and that just happens. I had a breeding pair of Texas cichlids, green Texas, a long time ago, and they were repeatedly having babies and raising them up, and it was all going well. I decided to move them, and I moved the female out and then changed my mind and put her back, and the male killed her within like 5 minutes. So let's take a look at this fish. This is the Salvini that was in that tank. This is the female, and if she'll turn, you'll see all of her scales are ripped off. Her tail fin is gone. That fish is just brutalized. And I think it's actually been 2 days since I found her, and she's already recovering some. Believe it or not, and this is hard to believe, she looked worse than this. She's getting some of her color back, because she looked like this with even more of the fins missing, and that yellow, that beautiful yellow that characterizes this fish, was all gone. She was white as a ghost. And I didn't know what to do with her. I didn't have many options for an aquarium I could move a 4.5-inch Salvini into. And I didn't even have really a good quarantine tank. I have the one you're about to see that we're going to put some of these new fish in. But I made the decision to put her in here into the 210-gallon tank, and I tried to treat her a little bit, add some more salt to the tank, some medicated food to try to keep her in her injured state where she's more vulnerable, try to keep her from getting sick. I gave her some medicated food, and she seems to be doing all right. You know, fish aggression is a real thing, and sometimes it can just happen. So, you guys have any advice on what I could have done differently? I was thinking about how could I have put something in that tank that would have relaxed them? I wanted to do dither fish, but I tried a couple different types of dither fish, and they were killing and eating the dither fish. I first just used some guppies. I wasn't surprised they ate the guppies, but then I went and bought tiger barbs and put in there. They did the same thing to the tiger barbs. So the dither fish thing might have been a good idea, but it didn't work out for me there. Funny sidebar, every time I do anything with this tank, this arowana bites my finger, not even sticking it in the water. If my finger is dangling above the water, he'll take a little bite. Next, we have the angelfish tank. This is my beautiful pair of koi angels. They've got a lot of white on them, but also some nice orange. And they've been laying eggs a lot. Mainly in this tank, they've been laying the eggs on this pot. But every time that pot gets swarmed with snails, and the parents are kind of picking at it, and I don't know if they're trying to get the snails off or if they're trying to eat the eggs. But every time they lay eggs on this pot, they eat their own eggs, or the snails eat the eggs, whatever the case is. So I got this tumbler, and I'm going to do a separate video on the whole process. When I get baby fish, baby angels to hatch out, I'm going to show you the full process of using this tumbler. But I currently have these eggs tumbling in here, and there's a snail on the outside of the tumbler. I believe that's on the outside. Yeah, there's a little snail on the outside of the tumbler. So hopefully soon we have baby angels. I am using methylene blue in that tank to try to help prevent fungus from getting on the eggs. If you guys have any other tips about angelfish breeding, let me know in the comments. Somebody told me that you don't really want to tumble those eggs. You want to stick them to the side of a glass box and have an air stone below them. But I had the tumbler and I didn't really have a box set up ready to do that with. So we'll see how it goes. I've also got a couple of viewers, one in particular, who is waiting to see if my acaras lay eggs, and they have not so far, but I'm watching them every day. My friend Robert from the Scallywags Fish Bowl is who I got these acaras from. He had them laying eggs before, and he says they're showing that behavior that they will lay eggs again, but they haven't done it for me yet. So fingers crossed on getting some acara in here. So now we're going to take a look at the new fish that I'm bringing home today. What do we have first? That is a T-bar cichlid. This is the first time I've seen a T-bar cichlid in person. It's not going to zoom in on him through the bag, but I'll get some images of T-bar cichlids and put on screen. The T-bar is kind of a peaceful, small cichlid. Say it's closely related to a convict, but it doesn't have the aggressive tendencies and the crazy mating habits of the convict. But they only get in that 3 to 5 inch range, say kind of small. The images I looked up of them, a lot of them looked like a Vieja, but they don't get big like a Vieja. That T-bar could not survive in here. It's too small. It would be dinner. That T-bar cichlid is a good tank mate for these geophagus. He's a good tank mate for the keyhole. Probably do fine with the discus and the angels. So the T-bar cichlid will probably end up in this tank. If anyone's wondering, there's the other discus. He's doing fine. But for today, that T-bar is going in here. This is kind of a grow out tank or a quarantine tank. I've got guppies breeding in here. They're not any fancy or special strains of guppies, but they regularly have babies. I've also got some little bristlenose in here. I believe these are super reds. And then I've got a Lapridae Bisher that you probably can't see in this shot. You can see him, you've got an eagle eye. He's kind of buried down in the crevices there. This guy is kind of a yellow and green striped Bisher. And he's been eating all these guppies, the little baby guppies. We're going to go ahead and do a water change on this while the fish are temperature acclimating. We'll do a little water change, make sure it's all clean for them. This tank also has shrimp in here that have been breeding. So there were a bunch of baby shrimp, but I think that Bisher has been eating them as well. The next fish we're going to be adding is a Texas cichlid right here. And he's going to be hard to see also. We'll try to get better shots of him in a minute. But that is a green Texas. Once again, you can't really see him in the bag. I'll show you some images of the green Texas cichlid. He's going in here. And that may be a problem. I've got a lot of fish that are similar in temperament and size, and he could be a good fit, but it's also getting kind of crowded. So let me show you some of the fish that are comparable and how much bigger they are, because that fish right now is a tiny, tiny little guy. Now, he is going to be a similar fish to this Carpentus. This is also known as the Texas cichlid, but it's an electric blue Texas, or a Carpentus cichlid, or a Rio Grande cichlid. There's different terminologies. but he's a mid-size version of what I just got. This Midas cichlid will be a similar size range and temperament, although he might be a little bigger and a little meaner. We've got the Vieja, which is a good match. We've got the Jack Dempsey and the Green Terror. And we've also got this tiny, tiny little Red Terror that really is too small to be in there. He should have been quarantined. But I put him in there and he's made it. He's been in here. This Red Terror's been in here for a few weeks. And then, and probably the king of this tank will be the Jaguar. I got this guy when he was tiny and put him straight in. And he has tripled in size. He's already dueling with this Oscar that's bigger than he is. That Jaguar might end up being the king of this tank, but currently it's the Texas is at the top of the hierarchy, followed by the Midas. And then, of course, the big guy, but he just stays at the top and minds his business mostly. Okay, so there is the little T-bar. Cute little guy. And the green Texas is in the back. Neither of these fish are much to look at today, but given time, these are going to be beautiful fish. And this will be a suitable grow out tank for them until they're big enough to put in the main tanks. As far as the size they need to be, smaller fish like this one are not really bullied in here. You'll see the Midas and the Carpentis chasing each other. They don't really bother the Geophagus brasiliensis because he's not seen as a threat to them. The third fish that we're adding today is a Lake Tanganykan African cichlid. It is a lelupai. It's a really beautiful fish. To me, it has more the body shape of like the predator haps, like the Malawi hawk. More elongated and almost curved up, almost like a banana shape, but not quite that much body curve. But I really like the body shape on those fish, even more than most of the other Africans. This one stays a little bit smaller, around 4 to 5 inches, where some get more like 6 to 7 inches. And, you know, some Africans get even a lot bigger than that. But I think this fish could be a little bit aggressive, but it's on the smaller side. So let's take a look at it. So there is the fish. And this one is actually beautiful, kind of gold orange color, and should fit right in this tank, but we're about to find out. Before letting the fish out of the bag, we're going to feed these fish. That usually calms them down about being aggressive to their new tank mate. A lot of really cool fish in here. I've done a profile on this tank before. I love that blueberry. Just all of these fish I just think are gorgeous. And I'm pretty confident that these guys are getting 125-gallon tanks soon, which is why I'm still adding fish to a tank that's pretty well stocked, because they are getting rehomed into one of the bigger aquariums. Okay, he's went to the bottom and hiding. I don't know if the lighting in this video is doing justice to the coloration of that fish, who of course went down there and hid with the catfish, but oh, there he is. Look at that pointy shape on him. Kind of a high back fin. Just a gorgeous fish. I love the different mouth shapes on some of these Africans. Like this one has kind of a brunt nose, that orange one right there. This one reminds me of a bass or a peacock bass in its shape. There we've got the little strawberry Synodontis. Where did the new guy go? There he is. To me, this lelupai is one of the more attractive fish in here. But apparently, according to the fish store owner, they're not quite as sought after as some of the other varieties. But I love that fish. I think he's gorgeous. Long-term plan for this aquarium is that Salvini is going to come out of there and he'll have two options where to go. He is either going to mix with these fish and fit in as these get a little bigger, because I've got South Americans in here like the parrot that do fine. These are aggressive fish. He may fit into a crowded community like this, but it won't be in that 55-gallon. If he does that, if that Salvini goes in with the Africans, it'll be in this koi tank with a custom hardscape. And that's the plan for the African cichlids regardless. It's just a question of if the Salvini will go with them. Now, this tank, where the Salvini is at now, is going to be a breeding tank. I've ordered some Tropheus that are going in this tank as my next breeding pair. So the breeding pairs that I will have is the Acara, the Koi Angels, and some Tropheus. So I'm really excited about that. Disappointed it didn't work out with the Salvinis, but I always knew it was questionable that at the size I got them to mix them together in a tank that size. So otherwise, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on in the fish room. I've got a couple of aquariums that are not yet stocked and I'm picking out fish for that I've got some pretty cool stuff in mind. But I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.